Happy morning, students. I hope there was a long gap between the last class and the recent class because of your online test, and I know you all have done the best performance during your online exam. But what I would say is continue this energy throughout the year. Now, whatever we have right now, try to continue this for each and every class and for every subject, which is going to help you. Do not waste your time because time is so important. Be regular, be punctual with your online classes and continue this forever. Okay? So, and I'm happy with all your performance, especially in chemistry, because I could see that there are children who have taken more effort in giving the answers, because that shows that you are regular in your online classes, you take the notes correctly, and you are very systematic in doing your things. So I'm very happy, children, and wish you good luck, because we'll be having some more tests again to do the follow-up work. So let us get back to our class for today. Now, before getting into today's class, what have we learnt in the previous class? We have learnt about solubility of solid and liquid and solubility of gases in liquid, and also we studied about Henry's law. If you remember, we studied that the solubility of a gas in a liquid, that is the partial pressure, is directly proportional to the mole fraction. The solubility is directly proportional to the partial pressure. In today's class, we are going to study about vapor pressure of liquid-liquid solution. As I have told you before, we are dealing with binary solutions. Now here, the case is where my solute is also a liquid, my solvent is also a liquid, which means it's a combination of liquid-liquid solution. Now let's take an example. Now assume this as a soda bottle. Now what do you see here is, you can see it is filled with water here. Now these spaces are empty. The spaces which is empty doesn't mean there is nothing. You have air molecules present there, which has been occupied in this empty space. Now you know, at a particular temperature, since I have my liquid solution here, the components which are present may be volatile. So what happens? They may get energy and they start getting vaporized. So when they start vaporizing, they occupy the surface which is above this liquid. And what happens? As we already know, it's a dynamic equilibrium. So over a period of time, when the equilibrium reaches, what happens here? Now the molecules which are present in the vapor phase may also can come back to its liquid state. So this we call it as an equilibrium, where the rate of evaporation will be equal to the rate of condensation. So now here there is some vapor pressure which is being exhibited by the components here above the surface of the liquid. That we call it as the vapor pressure of the liquid at that particular temperature. So as I told you, at equilibrium, the number of particles which are entering into the liquid phase will be equal to the particles that are entering into the vapor phase. So when this equilibrium is reached, there will be a vapor pressure exhibited by the particles above the surface of the liquid. That you call it as a vapor pressure or the partial pressure of that component. So now in today's class, we will see about the binary solutions where both the components are liquid. We have two components, liquid, and both are volatile. So when I say volatile, one can be less volatile and one can be more volatile. So in such cases, what happens? According to Dalton's law, children, if you can recollect what we have learnt in 11th standard, Dalton's law of partial pressure. Yes, Adira, can you tell me? Yes, Dalton's law says that the total vapor pressure of the solution will be equal to sum of the partial pressures of the components, sum of the pressure exhibited by each component in the solution. So here we consider the total, that is the total pressure will be equal equal to P1 plus P2. Here I am considering only two components. So we will take P1 and P2. Now what happens once after this is being studied? There was a French chemist, Raoult, and what did he said is, for solution of volatile liquids, I repeat, where the condition is the liquids are volatile in nature. For solution where the liquids are volatile, the partial vapor pressure of each component in the solution. If I have two components, I have two partial pressure. So the partial vapor pressure of each component in the solution is directly proportional to its mole fraction, which means the partial pressure is directly proportional to the mole fraction of the component. So I think you remember the last class where we studied about Henry's law. In Henry's law we studied the pressure is directly proportional to mole fraction with Kh, which Kh is the Henry's constant. You remember, children? Same thing we are going to apply here. For the first component, P1 is proportional to x1, where P1 is the pressure of my first component, x1 is the mole fraction of my first component. Now to remove this proportionality, we introduce a constant which we call it as P1 naught. What is P1 naught? P1 naught is the vapor pressure of the pure component. Now how should we understand it? What do you mean by vapor pressure of pure component? Now when we consider, we will have to see this graph for better understanding. Now consider this graph which Raoult studied before deriving into this conclusion. He was plotting a graph on y and x axis. On y axis vapor pressure and on x axis it was mole fraction. So you can see here x1 is 1 and here x1 is 0 and here x2 is 0 and here x2 is 1. Now what does this mean? Where x1 is equal to 1 and x2 is equal to 0, we have also studied in the same chapter, the sum of the mole fractions of each component will be unity, right? So here 1 plus 0 will be 1. So in this combination, I have in my solution only component 1. x2 is absolutely 0. It is absent. It is not there. I have only x1 which is 1. So at this point what happens when x1 is 1, I have only one component out of the two components which are volatile. So this will be the vapor pressure of my pure component, which I write as P1 naught. You are able to get me, children? This is a special condition where we consider only one component present out of the two components in the liquid solution. So in my first case, x1 is 1, x2 is 0. So absolutely there is no second component present in the solution. Now on the other hand, what happens when x1 is 0, there is no component 1 present in the solution. Instead I have component 2 where x2 is equal to 1. And as we already know, sum of the mole fractions will be equal to unity, that is 1. So here again 0 plus 1 becomes 1. So when there is only component 2 present, x2 equal to 1, what is happening to my partial pressure? Now this will be the pressure of my pure component 2. So you have two cases where P1 naught is present, P2 naught is also present. You are able to understand, children? x1 becomes 1. Over a period of time, there will be only component 2 present, component 1 will be absent. Now we also studied about Dalton's law. Now what is Dalton's law saying? We told here the total pressure will be equal to P1 plus P2. So what is happening here? Over a period of time, P1 starts a graph like this and you get in P2 reaching the pure component and sum of which will be equal to the total pressure of the solution. So now getting back to the definition. Raoult's law states that for a solution of volatile liquid, the partial vapor pressure of each component in the solution will be directly proportional to its mole fraction. So what did we see here? P1 is proportional to x1, P1 is equal to P1 naught x1, and I have explained what is P1 naught. So similar, we will do it for the second component. P2 proportional to X2. P2 is equal to P2 naught into X2. So now you have pressure for both the components, the first and the second component. Now we will introduce Dalton's law. So according to Dalton's law, the total pressure will be P1 plus P2. Now substitute the values of P1 and P2 in this equation. So what do we get? P1 naught X1 plus P2 naught X2. Now before getting into this step, I just want to tell you, we know X1 plus X2 is equal to 1. So if we know the value of X1, how can we calculate the value of X2? Jitin? I know one of my value and the total sum is equal to 1. So how do I get the answer for the other one? Yes, you are right. It is 1 minus X2. So what I am going to do here is, since we know X1 plus X2 is equal to 1, and what is X1? In the place of X1, I put 1 minus X2. So P1 naught into 1 minus X2 plus P2 naught X2. Now what happens? Just multiply this. You get P1 naught minus P1 naught X2 plus P2 naught X2. Take the common term outside. Put the other things in the brackets. You get X2 into P2 naught minus P1 naught plus P1 naught. So what do we get here? The total pressure of the solution will be X2 into P2 naught minus P1 naught plus P1 naught. So this was derived by the scientist Raoult. So now after deriving this, he came into a conclusion. What was the conclusion? There are three conclusions derived from this equation. The first conclusion was the total vapor pressure is related to the mole fraction of one component. Now what does it mean? I have already told you this is a binary solution. In the binary solution, we know there are two components primarily present. So if I know the mole fraction of one component, I can definitely calculate the total vapor pressure. Are you able to get me, children? If I know the mole fraction of any one component, it can be component 1 or it can be component 2, I will be able to calculate the total vapor pressure of the solution. And the second one is total vapor pressure varies linearly with mole fraction of component 2. You can see this is the total vapor pressure. What do you mean by linearly? Over a straight way. It goes like this. So the total vapor pressure goes linearly with the mole fraction of component 2. Here component 2 there is nothing present, but over a period of time it increases from 0 to 1. So it goes linearly with component 2 mole fraction. Excuse me. And the last one is, depending on P1 naught and P2 naught, total vapor pressure over the solution increases or decreases with increase in the mole fraction of component 1. If I know the value of my P1 naught and if I know the value of my P2 naught, definitely I will be able to calculate the total vapor pressure of the solution. And what will happen to that? It may either increase or decrease. If there is increase in the P1 naught, what happens? My total vapor pressure will increase. If there is a decrease in the P1 naught, the total vapor pressure will decrease. So that is how it is related to the mole fraction of the component 1, because component 1 is nothing but only P1 naught is present. So depending on the value of P1 naught and P2 naught, what happens? The total vapor pressure will increase or decrease. So this was the conclusions given by the scientist Raoult. From this graph, he was also pointing the most important thing, children. As I told you, this is my solution. I have two components, assume. We know water and alcohol, if they are present, both are volatile. Water can get converted to the vapors, water vapors, right? So what happens in this case is, if x1 and x2, assume I have two components here in this part, right? So what happens here? I have x1 and x2 be the mole fraction of those two components, right? 1 and 2. Assume both are volatile. One can be less volatile and one can be more volatile. In that case, what will be the mole fraction? The mole fraction of the components in the vapor phase. X1 and X2 are the mole fractions of the component in the liquid phase, but Y1 and Y2, because in vapor phase already they have been evaporated. We cannot now take X1 and X2. We can definitely calculate the mole fraction of the components in the vapor phase also. So what happens in vapor phase? In vapor phase, partial pressure of component 1 can be given as mole fraction into the total pressure. I repeat children, Y1 is the mole fraction of the component 1 in the vapor phase. So P1 will be Y1 into P total. Similarly for the second component, it will be Y2 into P total, where Y2 is the mole fraction of the component 2 in the vapor phase. So in general, I can write Pi is equal to Yi into P total, where I can be any number of components, 1, 2, 3, 4. So any number of components if it is having, definitely the pressure of that component will be equal to the mole fraction of that component into the total pressure. So these were the assumptions or these were the derivations given for binary solutions where we have liquid-liquid solutions and both being volatile in nature. Now, this is a special case where Raoult's law is acting as a special case of Henry law. Henry's law we studied for solubility or vapor pressure of gases in liquid. When we were studying of gases in liquid, we derived an equation where pressure will be equal to Kh into X, where Kh is the Henry's constant. And we know an increase in the Henry's constant will cause a decrease in the mole fraction, right? And it is the vice versa. And Henry's law we were studying only for gases in liquid solution, but Raoult's law we studied for liquid-liquid solution where both the liquids are volatile in nature. So conditions apply. In cases of volatile liquid solutions, we study Raoult's law. So Raoult's law again I am saying where in the place of Kh, Henry's constant, we have written P1 naught, which is the vapor pressure of the pure component. So I think children you are able to follow this. These are the similar questions, like you may not be asked to do the entire derivation, but definitely you should be learning the definitions of Henry's law, Dalton's law, Raoult's law, and of course the equation, the last step of derivation is very important. Okay. Now we will be studying about vapor pressure of solid in liquid solution and also about ideal and non-ideal solutions. Children, we were seeing about Raoult's law, and in Raoult's law we were seeing about binary solutions, that is where we have two volatile liquids. The volatile liquids both can be evaporated. So what happens, we will deriving an equation with Raoult's law, that is Pi. If I is a component, the partial vapor pressure will be equal to the product of mole fraction into Pi naught, where Pi naught is the vapor pressure of the pure solvent. This is what we have seen in the previous derivation, right? Now this class we are going to see vapor pressure of solutions of solids and liquids. That is, last class we were seeing both are liquid, but now here we will be seeing where there is a solid which is present in a liquid. So naturally liquid will be the solvent and the solute will be a solid in nature. Now here is a diagram where two diagrams are given. Now if you can see, there is a small difference. I'll just give you an example as I told you before. This bottle, you can see the solvent which is present inside. When we take liquid-liquid solution, I told you both are volatile, so they cannot wait at the same pace. So at a particular temperature, they start getting energized and vaporized. So this will be the vapor pressure of my particles which have been vaporized, right, which is occupying this part. But in this case, when I say vapor pressure of solid in liquid, now assume that I have solid which is present in the liquid. So what happens, if only liquid is present, if it's only a pure solvent. I don't have my solute. Only my solvent, say water is alone present here. We know the water particles are only here. There is no other solute present. So these water particles can vaporize. So when the water particles vaporize, you know, the vaporization, that is the evaporation, takes place at the surface level. At this level, this is my surface level. So this takes place at the surface level. So the molecules which are here occupying this surface, you can see this surface, will be ready to escape into the vapor phase. You are able to follow, children? Now in this case where I have only pure solvent, I have only my solvent molecules which are present at the surface. So when only solvent molecules are present at the surface level, what happens? They will be able to vaporize immediately. They don't have any obstacles. So they just start vaporizing and they occupy the place here. So you can see more number of solvent molecules which have been vaporized. At this case, when you come to the second diagram, this is a mixture of solute plus solvent. I have my solid solute which is dissolved in the solvent. So what will naturally happen? And the case is so simple that the solute is a non-volatile solute. What do you mean by non-volatile? Yes. Anaga, what is non-volatile? Yes. Volatile is something which can vaporize. Non-volatiles are those which do not vaporize at all. So when I have a non-volatile solute in my volatile solvent, now what is going to happen here? I have solute plus solvent at the surface level. Apart from my solvent molecules, say I have sodium chloride in water. Apart from water molecules, what happens? There will be some salt, that is sodium chloride, will also be present at the surface level. You are able to get me, children? Because I told you vaporization takes place at the surface level. Apart from my solvent molecules, there will be solute particles which are non-volatile in nature. They don't vaporize at all and they will also be present at the surface level. You can see a pink color I have marked here and I have put here solute. Out of like 7 molecules which are present at the surface level, I have 4 molecules of solute which are non-volatile in nature. So just think, children, those solvent molecules which need a space to get vaporized are being occupied by non-volatile solute. So the space which is required by the solvent molecules are not enough, right? The number of solvent molecules which has to vaporize has come down because those positions are occupied by my non-volatile solute. So what happens? The number of volatile solvent molecules will be less. So naturally, what will happen to my vapor pressure? That will also come down. You are able to get me, children? The vapor pressure will be less, decreases when the non-volatile solute is there in the solvent because the number of solvent molecules which has to get vaporized will be less. Those spaces will also be occupied by the non-volatile solute. So you can see here, you can see more number of vaporized molecules, but here the number has come down. Now I have given some examples here where you have sodium chloride, glucose, urea, sugar. These are all non-volatile solute and where they are present in my water, which is a volatile solvent. And since these are soluble in water, I have given this example. You have some more examples like iodine and sulfur which can be dissolved in carbon disulfide. Okay. So these are also examples where these are non-volatile but these two are volatile. So whenever a non-volatile solute is added to a volatile solvent, what happens? The vapor pressure has to decrease because at the surface level, the non-volatile solute occupies more space. So the original space or the space required for the volatile solvent will be less. Now the physical properties of solution are different from those of the pure solvent. See, children, understand when I say solutions, we know a pure solvent or a solute solvent, there is no chemical bonding actually present. In solutions, we don't have chemical bonding, right? There's only an interaction, there is forces of interaction available. So what happens here, when I say physical properties, nothing but vapor pressure. So physical properties of solutions are different from those of pure solvent. When I say pure solvent is present, it has some vapor pressure, right? I told you an example of the bottle. The vapor pressure of this liquid is different from the vapor pressure of the particles which have escaped as vapors. That is, in this space, in this empty, it seems to be empty, but these are all vapors actually. So these vapors, the molecules of water which have escaped as vapors will be exhibiting some vapor pressure, and there will be vapor pressure of the liquid as well. So when it is discussed as vapor pressure of the pure solvent, here it is more, but when there is a solution, what do you mean by solution? Combination of solute and solvent. You are able to get me, Arya? You are able to follow me? Right? So whenever we say physical properties, most important is the vapor pressure. There will be a decrease in the vapor pressure. So now, decrease in vapor pressure of solvent depends upon the quantity of non-volatile solute. Now this is an important thing that which we should understand, children. Whenever I say there is a decrease in the quantity, decrease in the vapor pressure, it is affected by quantity and not its quality. There is a difference. What is quality? Quality means its nature, how it is, right? But quantity is how much, how many. So that plays a very important role. So when I add more number of solute, non-volatile solute, definitely there will be a decrease in the vapor pressure. It can be my sodium chloride, it can be my sugar, it can be my urea. If I am going to add 1 mole of sugar or 1 mole of urea, 1 mole of sodium chloride in water, the vapor pressure decrease amount will be the same, irrespective of its nature, that is the quality. But if the amount of the solute added is different, naturally there will be a difference in the decrease in the vapor pressure also. I hope you are able to get me, children. So this is most important, which is being concluded in this. The vapor pressure of the solvent depends on the quantity of the non-volatile solute irrespective of its nature. So here we are not considering the quality, what type of solute it is. We are only worried of how much quantity we take. Now, as we have been studying about Raoult's law, like Raoult's law was helping us to find out the vapor pressure of volatile liquids, that is when solute and the solvent are volatile, that is when we take liquid solutions, right? So in those cases we were deriving, that is P1 is equal to x1 into P1 naught. You remember, children? We were doing that. But in general form, general means like on or overall, how can I say what is Raoult's law? So how should we say that? For any solution, it can be a volatile liquid or it can be a non-volatile solute in a volatile liquid. Generally, for any solution, the partial vapor pressure of each volatile component. Remember, children, the partial vapor pressure of each volatile component. Why do we say volatile component? Because those are the components which will vaporize. So the partial vapor pressure of each volatile component in the solution is directly proportional to its mole fraction. It is directly proportional only to the mole fraction of that particular component, right? So that's why when we take a solution where we put the volatile solvent as 1 and the non-volatile solute as 2. Let us just put it as 1 and 2 so that we understand it better. Okay, so let the volatile solvent be 1 and the non-volatile solute be 2. So vapor pressure will be given as P1 proportional to x1, where P1 is the partial vapor pressure of the component 1, that is the volatile solvent. x1 is the mole fraction of the solvent. So now P1 is equal to x1 into P1 naught, which is already been derived by Raoult's law. So this is a general statement which we write for any solution containing, can be a volatile liquid or a non-volatile solute in a volatile solvent. Now when you consider this, right, if I am going to see a non-volatile solute present in a volatile solvent, Now how do my graph is going to be? Now we are going to plot a graph between vapor pressure and mole fraction. Here I am considering solvent in this case, where here it is 0. That is, at this point if you see, it is 0, which means there is no solvent present. There is only a non-volatile solute, my solvent. That is, assume that I have a beaker where only I have sugar inside, which is a non-volatile solute. So if I am going to have sugar inside or salt inside, what is going to happen? At this point my vapor pressure is 0, right? There is no change in the vapor pressure. But as I am adding water into it, once I start pouring my solvent, that is water, into my solute, what is going to happen? Gradually this mole fraction 0 becomes 1. Where my mole fraction is 1 here, at the same time the graph linearly it increases as there is an increase in the amount of solvent. So whenever there is an increase in the amount of solvent, what happens? There will be more number of volatile particles which are getting escape into the vapor phase. So there will be an increase in the vapor pressure. So when there is an increase in the vapor pressure, what should be happen? This will be the point at which we get the vapor pressure of the pure component, that is only solvent is present and there is no solute. You are able to get me, children? So this is what we will be deriving in case of vapor pressure of solutions of solids in liquid, where the solid is a non-volatile solute. Okay, now you are able to understand. I think these are the important things, assumptions made by the scientist with a proper conclusion. You will not be asked to derive this in the exam, but you will be given a situation where a non-volatile solute with a solvent will be given, and then analyze the situation, and then you should write the conclusion. That is, what can be the situations if there is a non-volatile solute in the solvent. Chances of increase in vapor pressure or decrease in the vapor pressure. So I hope you are able to follow, children. Now we will get into ideal and non-ideal solutions. So children, I told you we will be seeing about ideal and non-ideal solutions. Raoult's law was helping us to find out the vapor pressure of the solutions, whether if both are volatile or we have non-volatile and volatile. Right, so that was we saw with Raoult's law. But actually we are dealing on a day-to-day basis with so many types of solutions, aren't we? Give me examples of solutions where we make at home. Yes, Ardra? Yes, you're right. We have sugar solution, we have lemon juice, right? We have salt solution, right? We make fruit shakes. So many types of different types of solutions we make, and we see, we experience in our daily life. Now there is something that we are going to see in this part of the lesson is ideal and non-ideal solution. Now what is the meaning of ideal? We used to listen to this word in different ways, ideal. What do you mean by ideal? Yes, anybody? Hafiz, Sagar, Hashim? Yes, ideal means perfect. Ideal means perfect, exactly the same, or something that is accurate, right? Now here we'll see what is an ideal solution. Solutions that obey Raoult's law over all the concentrations are called as ideal solutions. What do you mean by that? Whatever may be the concentrations, right? The different concentration, but this law is being obeyed. We just follow the same law. What is the law? The law says that the vapor pressure of the component will be equal to the mole fraction of the component into the vapor pressure of that pure component. So if this law is being accepted, or if the solution obeys this law, we call that solution as an ideal solution. Now we have seen this graph before, right? Now what did we see in this graph actually? We have two components where this becomes P2 naught, that is when only one component is present, we get the vapor pressure of that pure component, and over a period of time we have only the second component present but the first component is not there, so you get the vapor pressure of the second component. and according to Dalton's law, the total vapor pressure will be equal to sum of the vapor pressures of the component present in the solution. So we know the dark lines which I have drawn, the thick lines which I have drawn is the graph for an ideal solution. Any ideal solution that if it obeys the Raoult's law, you should be getting a graph like this, right, with the thick lines. One side we have vapor pressure, the other side we have mole fraction with two components, and sum of the vapor pressures of the components will be giving us the total vapor pressure of the solution. But I'll tell you children, in our day-to-day life or practically if you see, there are no solutions which are perfectly ideal. You cannot say that these solutions are ideal. There is no solutions like that, but they just go close with the ideal behavior. They just go a little bit similar with the ideal behavior. They just follow Raoult's law to some extent. So those we consider them as ideal solutions. Otherwise, you cannot say this is an ideal solution, right? So solutions which has some similarity towards this Raoult's law or follow such type of graph, we call them as ideal solutions. So ideal solutions are solutions that obey Raoult's law over entire range of concentration. And what happens there? Now let us say we have two components A and B. A and B are the two components. When I mix A and B, I get AB, right? I get AB. Now what happens, as I told you before, we don't have a chemical bonding in this. So the chemical composition does not change at all. But what happens is that there is an intramolecular forces of attraction. So there can be an interaction between A and A, there can be an interaction between B and B, and there can be an interaction between A and B also. You're able to get me children? There are two components. We have component A and component B. A and A molecules can attract each other. They can have a strong force of attraction. Again, my B and B molecules can also attract each other. There can be a strong force of attraction. At the same time, when I mix them together, I can also have A and B attraction, where A can attract my B. So in ideal solution, how do I call this as an ideal solution? When the attraction between A and attraction between B and B is equal to attraction between A and B. That is, AA attraction, BB attraction is similar to that of my AB attraction. Such type of solutions, we call them as ideal solutions, where the del H mixing and the del B mixing. What is del H? Change in enthalpy. So in this process, there will be no heat that is being evolved during the process or no heat that is absorbed during the process. So absolutely it is nil, that is zero. Similarly the volume, no increase in volume or no decrease in volume. Once I mix it, the volume is constant. Such type of solutions, we call them as ideal solutions. As I told you, ideal solutions can be like only in very few cases we have. Like examples I have written N-hexane and N-heptane, and also we have benzene and toluene. But these are just examples which are close by to the ideal solutions. But what happens in reality is we are facing more of non-ideal solutions. When I say ideal is perfect, non-ideal will be the opposite of it, right? So non-ideal solutions are those which do not obey Raoult's law. That is, this is not being obeyed. So what happens in that case? Can anybody guess what will be happening? Because I told you in ideal solution, the vapor pressure is dependent on the mole fraction, right? So here what will happen to the vapor pressure? Either they will be decreasing or they will be increasing. So let us consider now, as I told you, non-ideal solution do not obey Raoult's law. We have two types of graphs for non-ideal solution, where the solutions can be showing a positive deviation and it can also show a negative deviation. Now why such cases happen? What is the reason behind that? That is what we are going to see now. As I told you, there are some forces of attraction between these molecules. Now, when there is a positive deviation, right? Before getting into positive deviation, I told you in ideal solution, the interaction between AA and the interaction between BB will be equal to or approximately equal to AB interaction. What happens in non-ideal, the interaction between AB will not be equal to the interaction between AA and BB. So now, that is the main reason what is causing a deviation in their behavior. Now, positive deviation. When I say positive deviation, there should be something, there is an increase, right? So, what happens here? Vapor pressure of the solution will increase. The total vapor pressure of the solution will be increased when AB interaction, that is the forces between A and B, is less than AA and BB. I repeat again, children. The intramolecular forces of attraction between AB is less than AA and BB. So what will happen in this case? Imagine I have a container, right? I have my molecules A, I have B in that. So if AB interaction is very weak, if it is very weak, this is my A, this is my B. A and B do not want to be closer. Their interaction is very weak, they just slide away. But what happens? AA interaction is very fast and BB interaction is also very strong. So when they are very strong, what happens? They tend to escape. They don't stay in the same place. Since A and B interaction is very weak, B try to join with another B whose interaction is stronger. Similarly, A tries to interact with another A whose interaction is stronger. So both the AA and the BB tend to escape faster. So when they tend to escape from the solution, what happens? The vapor pressure of the solution will increase. You are able to get me, children? Now, example, I have given you carbon disulfide and acetone. So the interaction, the force of interaction between CS2 and acetone is very weak. But instead, between two CS2 molecules and two acetone molecules are very stronger. So acetone escapes very fast, CS2 also escapes very fast. And what happens? Since the number of molecules they are escaping is very fast, the boiling point will be lower when the vapor pressure becomes higher. Why the boiling point will be lower? Can you guess, children? Yes, Alina, can you just guess what happens? Why the boiling point should be lower? Yes, what is boiling point? The temperature at which the liquid tends to boil. So as the number of molecules have started escaping becomes more and more, the liquid starts to boil, right? So naturally the boiling point will be lower. You are able to get me, children? So in case of positive deviation, the vapor pressure of the solution becomes higher and the boiling point will be lower, right? Now we'll get into the second case where the solutions show a negative deviation. Now once I finish this, I'll get back to the graph so that you will understand much better. Negative deviations are those where the vapor pressure of the solution decreases. When it will decrease? When AB interaction is more than AA and BB. Now understand, children, there is an important thing which you should know, the difference between positive and negative. Here the solute-solute interaction, the same solute interaction is more than allowing AB, but here AA and BB interaction is very weak. They don't tend to be closer. So what happens? AB interaction is more. So A tends to join with B rather than escaping to the vapor phase. So instead of getting into the vapor phase, they try to be closer and form together a cluster. So what happens in that case? The vapor pressure will decrease. So what happens when the vapor pressure decreases? There are more number of molecules present at the solution level than at the surface level. So the boiling point will increase. So when there is a vapor pressure decrease of the solution, the boiling point of the solution will increase. Example I have given phenol, aniline, and here I have just given you a sample of chloroform and acetone. which they regularly ask in the exam. What happens here, if you see, this is A and this is B. Assume acetone is A and chloroform is B. There is a strong intermolecular hydrogen bonding between the oxygen atom of acetone and the hydrogen atom of chloroform. So what happens here, since this bonding is so stronger, they don't tend to escape than the interaction between acetone molecule separately and chloroform molecule separately. So this type of deviation, we call it as a negative deviation. Now when we come to the graph, you can see this is my positive deviation. The thick lines which you see is that for an ideal solution which is obeying Raoult's law. Now over this thick lines, you can see my dotted lines which I have mentioned. If you can see clearly, children. So those dotted lines implies the increase in the vapor pressure. That is a positive deviation. This has to be the vapor pressure, but what happens, because of the change in the interaction in AA and BB, there is an increase in the vapor pressure. So the dotted lines which I have shown you with the total vapor pressure and also the partial pressure of A and B shows that this graph is for a positive deviation. If you come to this graph, second graph, what you can see here is a dotted lines which is under the thick lines, that is under the curve. So that shows a negative deviation, decrease in the vapor pressure. Here there is an increase in the vapor pressure, here there is a decrease in the vapor pressure. Why there is a decrease in the vapor pressure? Because AB interactions are more stronger than AA and BB. So what happens? The molecules do not tend to escape into the vapor phase, rather the vapor pressure decreases because of the non-escaping tendency of the molecules. So naturally the boiling point will also be more. I think, children, you are able to follow now what are this ideal and non-ideal solutions. Now what we'll be doing, once we know all this, we'll be having a small video to understand this much better. See, these concepts may be a little bit tough to digest, but children, just go in relating with a day-to-day experience what you see. Taking a water, closing it with a vessel, you can see the water droplets, and after some time it is being condensed back. So when you relate it with your daily experience, you will have more ideas of understanding, because these are just day-to-day experience.
Ideal and non-ideal
and
solutions.
Any doubt you have in this, please don't hesitate. Try to
Liquid solutions are of two types. The solutions which obey Raoult's law are called ideal solutions, and the solutions which do not obey Raoult's law are called non-ideal solutions.
Okay, children. So until then, see you in
The
the next class.
non-ideal solutions can show positive or negative deviations from Raoult's law. Let's understand the properties of ideal and non-ideal solutions individually. Ideal solution. An ideal solutions are solutions which obey Raoult's law over the entire range of concentration. Consider two beakers with solutions A and B respectively. The intermolecular forces of attraction between the molecules of each other will cause interaction between them. In other words, we can say that the first beaker will experience AA type of interaction and the second beaker will show BB type of interaction. Now, consider a solution containing both these components A and B. This solution will have AA interaction, BB interaction, and also a new type, that is AB interaction. If this solution is an ideal solution, then the intermolecular attraction between AB would be similar to the intermolecular attractive force between AA and BB interaction. Example, we can take a solution of benzene and toluene. Ideal solutions have some unique properties. When two components of an ideal solution are mixed, there is no change in the volume. That is, del V mixing is equal to 0. This is because the intermolecular attractive force is the same. When two components of an ideal solution are mixed, there is no change in the enthalpy. That is, there is no absorption or evolution of heat while mixing the two components. This is also because the similarity of forces of attraction between AB and AA and BB. When the vapor pressure of an ideal solution and its components is plotted, we see the plot of the partial vapor pressure of component A against its mole fraction is a straight line. The mole fraction of component A increases from 0 to 1. A plot of partial vapor pressure of component B against its mole fraction is also a straight line. The mole fraction of component B decreases from 1 to 0. The plot also shows the total vapor pressure of the solution, which is the sum of the partial vapor pressures of A and B. This is in accordance with the Raoult's law. Non-ideal solution. In reality, no solutions are ideal. Non-ideal solutions are those which do not obey Raoult's law over the entire range of concentrations. They behave ideally at very low concentration. Most solutions are non-ideal solutions. So, if we have a non-ideal solutions AB consisting of components A and B, then the interaction between AB will be different from AA and BB interaction. Based on the types of intermolecular forces, non-ideal solutions are categorized into two: solutions that show positive deviation and solutions that show negative deviation. So these are the two types of deviations by non-ideal solutions. Positive deviation. These are those where the partial vapor pressure of the solution and the components are above the partial vapor pressure of the solution as expected by the Raoult's law. Let us see why this happens. The intermolecular forces of attraction between AB are weaker than between AA and BB. In such cases, the molecules tend to escape easier from the solution than the pure component. This results in the increase in the vapor pressure than the pure component. This is the case where the AB interactions are weaker than the AA and the BB interaction. So, an increase in vapor pressure will result in the decrease in boiling point. An example is a solution containing ethanol and acetone. When an acetone molecule comes between two ethanol molecules, it becomes weaker, the hydrogen bonding between two ethanol molecules, hence it tends to escape. In case of two solutions showing positive deviation, there is a straight increase in the volume, and the mixing of such solution, there is an absorption of heat, that is, change in enthalpy becomes positive because of the AB interaction weaker than AA and BB interaction. If we plot a graph between the partial vapor pressure of component A against its mole fraction, a curved line along the and above the partial vapor pressure curve is than expected from the Raoult's law is obtained. The mole fraction of A increases from 0 to 1. If we plot a graph between the partial vapor pressure of B against its mole fraction, a curved line above the partial vapor pressure expected from Raoult's law is obtained. The mole fraction of B decreases from 0 to 1. That is from 1 to 0. The total vapor pressure curve of the solution is the sum of the partial vapor pressure which is above the solution, that is the vapor pressure as expected from the Raoult's law. Now we will get into the non-ideal solution showing negative deviation. These are the solutions where the partial and the total vapor pressure of the components and the solution shows a lower curve than the total vapor pressure and the partial vapor pressure curve as expected by the Raoult's law. Such solutions are the non-ideal solutions with negative deviation. The intermolecular forces of attraction between AB is stronger than the forces of attraction between AA and BB. In such cases, the molecules find difficult to escape into the vapor phase compared with the pure state, and this will result in the less vapor pressure than its pure component with the increase in the boiling point. Example, chloroform and acetone shows negative deviation. When chloroform and acetone is mixed, strong hydrogen bonding are formed between them, and this reduces the escaping tendency of chloroform and acetone molecules. In this case of solution that shows negative deviation, there is a slight decrease in the volume, that is the del V becomes negative, and when mixing these two solutions there is an evolution of heat, that is change in enthalpy is also negative. The reason is that AB interaction is stronger than AA and BB interaction. If we plot a graph between partial vapor pressure of component A and its mole fraction, a curve below the partial vapor pressure curve as expected from the Raoult's law will be obtained. The mole fraction A increases from 0 to 1. If we plot a graph between partial vapor pressure of component B and its mole fraction B, a curve below the partial vapor pressure curve as expected from the Raoult's law will be obtained. The mole fraction of B decreases from 1 to 0. The total vapor pressure of the solution is also below the total vapor pressure of the solution as expected from the Raoult's law. As we know, these are the non-ideal solutions that show negative deviation.